You're listening to Science for Soundness, the podcast. This is not your usual podcast. This is a journey, and as with any journey, I don't know yet where this one is going. If anything, I'm hoping to inspire you to take the first step, even if it's into the unknown, even if you don't know where you're going and you do it scared. Hi, I'm Steffi. I'm an equine scientist and equine therapist. I've made it my mission to support horse owners on their individual journey of horse-human connection and personal growth. I want you to know that I'm with you on this one. Think of me as a friendly voice, a reminder to stay the course, to keep going, keep listening to yourself and to your horse, even when the going gets tough. Let's do this. You don't want them to be scared or fear the interaction that you're going to have because you're not trying to change them. You're changing the way you perceive the problem. Problems are not problems. They are opportunities to seek truth. Hey gang, today we are going to talk about something that is very near and dear to my heart, a topic that I can honestly find pretty frustrating at times, and I'm pretty sure if you've hung out with me up until this point, you think kind of the same. Today we're going to talk about problem horses, and I don't mean that 100% serious when I say problem horses, because you'll come to find out my view on this in a second. But you know, problem horses, horses that are difficult to handle for the owners or handlers, we have this notion of classing horses as problem horses or difficult to train or handle horses. And I get all upset, frustrated, and a little bit hung up on the fact that these horses who do not respond well to our training or our way of interacting, the thing with them is these horses can be our greatest teachers. Classing our horses as problem horses actually really reduces them down to one super superficial aspect. And that aspect is function. And that function only serves us. And when it doesn't, they become a problem. So every time I hear somebody say, I'm dealing with, I have a problem horse, whatever you pick, it really gets me thinking, because I'm wondering when that person stopped seeing their horse for who they truly are. And I'm wondering, I have all these big questions on my mind, like, how come you not see? When did you decide that that was the problem? When did you think that that is the actual issue? When did you stop looking for what is actually underneath that issue? And I get really sad for those horses because, they live, most of the times I come across so-called problem horses, they live pretty miserable lives. And if they don't have any other way of showing this, how are we supposed to change stuff if we don't look at that and then actually try and find what's underneath the problem? Because it's not a problem. It's their way of showing us what we need to see in order to help them. It is their way of showing us their current state. It is the only way they can communicate. It's not a problem. And yes, it can be classed as a problem if your horse constantly goes through the fence, but then why would it do that if it has friends and shelter and access to forage all day? And if it has space, why would it go through the fence? If you keep a horse in a way that is not sustainable for them, or if you keep them in a way that is frustrating or upsetting, like having a stallion next to mares and they can never access the mares, then you might have a frustrated horse. He might go through the fence. But he may also not, because you're giving him enough friends and forage and shelter and space, and that is not an issue. So what is the actual problem? who created that problem? Is it the horse? Are they the problem? Are they the problem horse because they're creating a problem for us? Or are we actually the problem because we are the ones creating issues for them? And there is something that I find really interesting. It's the fact that people get really upset about how their horses behave around them, or when their horses misbehave, let's say that, then it's a big problem. But these people often don't want to put in the work to create that connection that helps solving the problem, that helps set the foundation for a connection, a trusting, lasting, mutual connection. So I want to share a story with you, because the thing is, these horses that we call problem horses can be our greatest teachers. And for this, I want to share with you a little lesson and story from my own life so that we can open up this conversation on problem horses. When I studied in Cambridge, UK, I realized that keeping my horse in Germany was not in my best interest, as I missed her a lot, and also wasn't in her best interest because I wasn't there to handle all aspects around her day-to-day care, her, everything that would have been my job. I wasn't there to actually do it, so I had to rely on other people to do that. So I kind of decided at some point, I missed her a lot. She didn't have much of me at that point, and I just wished to interact and spend more time with her alongside doing my studies. So when Sun first came to the UK, she was kept at a yard with 2 other horses, which was great for me because I knew Sun came from a really big herd. She was a very social horse, so she wouldn't have any problems adapting to any new herd environment. However, and this is where the problem was, these horses that she was put next to never got to hang out in the same field together with her. Sun was kept in a separate field, and so were the other 2 horses. So we had 3 horses and 3 individual paddocks. And that was not the life that I had wished for her to have. But because it was very difficult to find a new place for her to stay, she was in Germany and I was in the UK, and I had to just take the best option that I could get. And don't get me wrong, the family was absolutely lovely. They took me in with open hearts and open minds and open arms, which was exactly what we needed when we started off in the UK. But it soon became very clear to me, and actually to everybody else, that Sun was very unhappy. And when the opportunity arose, I decided to lease my own paddock, which I would then transform into my first ever paddock paradise. So far, so good, you might think. But as we've just noticed, Sun was really upset. She was very lethargic, and I actually would say depressed from a lack of social interaction, so that I was desperate to find her a new friend because I knew she needed that social interaction. She came from this really big herd, and I wanted her to get that social interaction she deserved, as well as to feel confident and comfortable in herself again. So I went out on a search and found this little Exmoor pony. Her name was Frisbee. We then called her Bee. And she was a bit skittish, but I could sense that she was a pure soul at heart. I could sense that she must have experienced some form of trauma in her life. And even though a lot of things suggested that this could be a hard path to choose, there was something inside me that said, take her now. Take her now. So in the end, I actually did. That was the best thing that I could ever do. Bee was the best that could have happened to me, and especially to Sun. She was the best of friends with her from day one. Never an argument, never an issue between the two of them. They were just thick as thieves. She was such a tough one to crack for me, though, some would say, because B wasn't really happy to interact or to perform in any way, shape, or form. B was actually saying no, like a big fat no, to everything that I brought across. And I do remember there were moments in which I struggled to put on a head collar. And honestly, I started to question my entire existence. And you may think this sounds a little bit dramatic, but honestly, I felt completely at a loss. You might think, just whack the head collar on, but whacking on is exactly what brought her into the situation in the first place. B had such traumatic experiences, it seemed. People must have overstepped, mistreated, misjudged, and assumed. B was saying no because she had never been heard truly. Like, truly. And as I said, I was studying for my bachelor's degree in equine science, so I was honestly questioning and doubting myself. I was questioning and doubting everything I learned. There are all these things that we learn about horses, the way they should behave, the way we should train them, and you can probably hear the should in that. However, the reality looks somewhat different. To have a horse who says no to all the things all the time is one of the greatest blessings, in my opinion. All those no's will force you to think and act from a different perspective. All those no's will guide you and lead you on a new path, a new journey that has your horse's interest at heart. You see, when we deem horses as problem horses, this is all about us. They are a problem because they don't work for us, because we don't have ideas and tools or empathy to see what really is behind that, because it doesn't work for us, because we lack compassion and strive for competition. The fact that you are here shows me that you are kind of questioning the things that you have been taught about horses. It also tells me that you're interested in learning and gaining new perspectives. And the greatest teachers you will ever have are your horses, or all other animals for that matter, because the beauty that these animals have within them is the fact that they do not worry about ego. And I know this is a tough one to talk about because it can sting if we realize that we've been acting from a place or space of ego. But they don't think about what is going to happen if this does not work out. They are present in the moment, right here, right now. And if you only learn one thing from them, it should really be that, how to be present in the moment. Problems are not really problems. They are actually opportunities to seek truth. So if anything, I would love for you to take away from this episode is that the problems are only problems if you make them into some. You see, once I realized that B was suffering from flashbacks or somehow struggling with her trauma, I changed the way I looked at her. And there is this quote, it says, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And this really, really rang true for us. And as soon as I've stopped expecting B to work in a certain way, or behave in a certain way, or allow me to do stuff in a certain way, we were able to go further and connect more deeply than I could have ever imagined. B went from a pony that allowed me to put on a head collar after 6 months, and I want to stress that, 6 months it took us to put on a head collar without having a stressful experience, to a pony who could be ridden freely by children without any issues, and I would even say with a smile on her little face. This wasn't down to some training that I had hammered into her in order to get rid of the problems, but instead, it was because I honored her struggles, I saw her fears, I chose to be on her side, no matter what that meant, rather than working against her and on her. Once you see your horse for who they truly are, there is nothing that could matter more than being at peace with them and being at peace in their presence. You don't want them to be scared or fear the interaction that you're going to have because you're not trying to change them. You're changing the way you perceive the problem. Problems are not problems. They are opportunities to seek truth. The question is, are you ready and able to step away from ego at times and seek that truth with your horse? Are you happy to interact from a space of unconditional love? Are you happy to see your horse for who they truly are? And if that means not getting a ride in, you'll still give them your all? Problems are not problems. They're our opportunities to seek truth. Friends, this is a really personal one for me because, as you know, I have lost Little B at the turn of the year, and it felt as though it was a completion of a cycle. We'd gone through everything together, and all of a sudden I was left with nothing. But I was at peace in that moment because I knew she was. And if there is anything, literally anything that Pony taught me, was that the problems are not problems. They are opportunities to seek truth. And I want to stress that because once you step behind that, once you feel what is behind that, it opens doors to some magical space with your horses that might sound woo-woo to you now, but honestly, I would never want to go back to the way I was before. And it actually all came down to this little Exmoor pony entering my life in 2014. So I am grateful for my so-called problem pony. I am grateful that we encountered all these roadblocks and struggles because B taught me to look at things from a different angle. B helped me change my perspective and seek truth within that. Friends, go hug your horses. Go find and seek truth. You got this. Hi friend, I hope you found something in this episode that resonated with you. I'm beyond grateful that you hung out with me today for a little while, and I do hope that you come along for the ride. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast, and if you feel like it, leave a review. Your feedback is greatly appreciated. If you have any questions or would like me to talk about a certain topic, check the show notes for ways to get in touch. I can't wait for next time. You got this.